gonna be a cold night.
Well, it's another cold and snowy weekend here in Pennsylvania, and the pickings are a bit slim these days in your local movie theater. But if you look hard enough, you may be able to find something interesting, and that brings me to American Fiction. Now, I'll admit to knowing next to nothing about this film. In fact, I had not even heard of it until about 3 weeks ago when it began to appear on several Best of 2023 lists. Now, this was released over 5 weeks ago, and it's a bit hard to find right now, but it's still in some theaters. So, with nothing else to do, I threw on my heavy coat, my snow boots, and I trekked down to the local theater to see American Fiction. So, what do we have here? And I mean that very literally. What even is American Fiction? Is it a good movie? Is it worth your time and money? Or is it one of them critical darling films, that the ones that appear every December for award time? They show up, they're in the theaters a couple weeks. Normal people never see them. Critics love them, but then they win their awards, never to be heard from again. I don't know. Before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot for American Fiction.
Let's talk.
So here we find Monk Ellison. He's a black writer and professor in Los Angeles. His novels receive academic praise, but they do not sell well, and his last manuscript was rejected for not being black enough. Now, his university places him on temporary leave due to his brashness with students over racial issues, encouraging him to attend a literary seminar in Boston and spend time with his family who happen to live there. Now, at the seminar, Monk encounters author Sintara Golden, whose best-selling novel, Weeds Lives in the Ghetto, panders to black stereotypes he believes.
No, that's a bad idea.
Now, in Boston, Monk reunites with his elderly mother Agnes and his sister Lisa, who's a doctor. And he enters into a relationship with Coraline, a lawyer living across the street from his mother. But then tragedy strikes when, while at dinner with his sister Lisa, she suffers a massive heart attack and dies. So, overcome with personal and professional frustration, Monk impulsively writes a manuscript titled My Pathology, a setup of expectations black writers are burdened with a melodramatic plot involving deadbeat dads, gang violence, and drugs. After submitting it to his publishers out of spite, he unexpectedly receives a $750,000 offer for rights to a movie. Now, he doesn't want to take it, but his mother has become ill with dementia, and he needs the money for her care. So he agrees to publish the book under the pseudonym Stag R. Lee. Now, his agent convinces him to adopt this persona of a violent, convicted felon when meeting with executives. So now Monk is propelled into the heart of the hypocrisy that he claims to disdain.
My hypocrisy goes only so far.
So let's begin with Monk. Now, Monk's played by Jeffrey Wright. Now, Wright's been acting for a long time. He's won an Emmy, Golden Globe, and a Tony Award. Now, he's usually a supportive actor, but he's the lead in this, and I have to say he's great. I mean, he's usually really good in everything he does, but he's usually not the lead. After seeing this, I hope he gets more leading roles. Now, Monk is a complex character. His exasperation, his occasional failure to acknowledge the suffering of others, the frustration mingled with tenderness he feels for his mother, who's now wholly reliant on him. Now, Wright brings it all to life. Not with large gestures, but with small things, little gestures that remind us how vulnerable he is. Monk is a real person. He's not a one-dimensional Hollywood caricature of a black person or a white person. And he can't be placed in a left-wing or right-wing box, and it's refreshing to see. He's a real person with complex thoughts on complex problems. In fact, I'd say the acting, it's the strength of this entire film. Every character is well fleshed out and expertly acted. And most of this film is fantastic, as it constantly pokes fun at our so-called intellectual superiors who love to tell us how to think, but never hold up a mirror to their own hypocrisy.
Right. You see the hypocrisy?
But kind of sad to say that the movie falls off the rails at the very end. Now, I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending, it's a chaotic mess. It pulls the film in so many different directions. And by the very end, I wasn't even sure what I was watching anymore. There are like 3 different endings. Now, I seem to be in the minority, as critics are praising it. But I have to call it like I see it. I'll admit, I'm not a fan of that whole let the audience decide what the ending is thing that some storytellers do. I think it's the job of the storyteller to tell the ending of the story on their own. It's why I despise the ending of The Sopranos so much, but that's a video for another time. So, I love the idea of this movie, and I loved most of it, but I left feeling like the original premise didn't fully land, and that's because of the ending. Now, I think it's worth a watch. Check it out when it comes to streaming service, because the acting and most of the story is fantastic. And I could definitely see Jeffrey Wright being nominated for many awards. Just be warned that the ending to me is a bit of a disappointment. Well, that's it from me this week. Thank you for listening. Hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment. Share this video with friends and enemies alike. And I thank you for giving me your valuable time, and I'll see you next week. Take care, and stay warm.